Good evening. My name is Helen Anthony. I'm the chair of the Committee on Finance. I'm calling to order our regular meeting on Tuesday, November 19th, 2024 at 5:33 p.m. Madam Clerk, would you please call the roll?
Chairwoman Anthony.
Present.
Vice Chairman Taylor.
Here.
Councilor Anderson.
Present.
Councilwoman Graves is not here. Councilor Sanchez.
Present.
Board President one absent. You have a quorum.
Thank you. And I'd also like to thank Jen Cheverini from the City Solicitor's Office, who's attending this evening's meeting. Karen Easter Gardner, our Policy Director, Jean Costa, our Auditor, and of course, Lauren Gutierrez and Donna Delusion, our clerks. So thank you so much. And we have many distinguished guests this evening. And Madam Clerk, would you please read agenda item number 1?
Item 1, resolution authorizing the mayor of the city of Providence by the city council to enter into the settlement agreement by and between the city of Providence, Rhode Island, Conduit State and Local Solutions Inc. and Modesto Traffic Management USA Inc. as presented in Exhibit A.
Who will be presenting this evening?
Raise your right hand. Do you swear on the country perjury that the testimony you're about to give is the truth, the whole truth? Okay, please state your names and your titles. Megan DeSanto, Deputy City Solicitor.
Courtney Hawkins, Chief Operating Officer.
Elizabeth Pettis, Court Administrator.
Thank you so much for coming. Please begin.
So before you tonight is the approval on a settlement agreement that includes exercising remaining options in 2 contracts that the city holds now. The company is now called Modaxo, so that's what I'm going to call it, but you may have known it as Conduit or 12 other names that came before it. This is a long-standing contract for camera, speed and red light cameras, and then parking ticket enforcement that the city has had for a long time. Elizabeth is here because she's had to do a lot of work around how this contract impacts municipal court. She's done an excellent job in working with the vendor on challenges we've had. And Megan is here because she helped us negotiate the settlement, so they can speak to some of the specifics I might not be able to speak to. In short, this is a contract that was a big mess that had not been properly managed for a long time. And as we sought to get our arms around it and manage it more actively, we found some inconsistencies with how they were billing us, which led us to seek resolution with the company for those inconsistencies. During that period of time, the company was sold. Conduit's book of business in these areas was sold to Modaxo, so that made it more complicated. So what's before you today is a settlement agreement that gives us credit for overpayments that were made by the city previously and aligns the 2 contracts for expiration in June of 2026. Part of the challenge with how these contracts were set up many years ago is that they were kind of inexplicably intertwined, which meant that it made it very hard for the city to re-procure either of the services, because if you wanted to go out for a new camera vendor, your parking violation service would be affected and vice versa. So by extending these, taking the credits and aligning these rates, the city will be able to move forward with clean procurements for these services that Modaxo will be welcome to bid on for the contract expiration in June of 2026. The other thing I'll note that has become clear as I've learned a lot about this is that the city historically used the then Conduit product as the data system for the operation of municipal court. That is not what that system was meant for. It caused a lot of problems within court operations. And when Elizabeth got here, because she has so much experience, she was able to lay out for us what kind of system the court actually needed to operate. And so we've started the implementation of that court case management system in all of our courts. which also makes us less reliant on this vendor for their data system, which has caused many problems for us in the past. And which, when we go to re-procure it, will allow us to procure the actual services instead of trying to get this like hybrid camera, parking, court case management thing all in. So I'm gonna pause there for specific questions. As you have them.
I just have a couple and I'm gonna open it up. I'm sure everyone does. So when you say that these two, I'm looking at the summary of the settlement
Yeah,
that we have, now does that need to, I'm not sure, solicitor, whether we need to mark that as an exhibit? I mean, it's a summary of the settlement.
I would mark it as an exhibit.
Okay, may I have a motion to mark this as exhibit 1?
Second.
Motion made by Councilor Randall, seconded by Councilor Sanchez, all in favor? Aye, all opposed. So, you've had that in front of you.
I think so.
Okay, this is from Tricia Pedriali regarding the summary of the conduit settlement agreement.
I mean. There are. I don't have this for
Okay, well, I'm just looking at this because,
Thank you.
they have two contracts, contract 1 and contract 2. And I guess I need to understand how it is moving forward. I think this is what you're talking about, separating the two, how the logistics of that work.
They were always separate contracts,
Okay,
but they referenced each other in their function. So it was like impossible to get rid of one and not both of them, and they weren't on the same time periods. So the way they were implemented left to this circumstance where the city previously was always saying like, oh, we have to just extend this because we need it for the other contract. So what this does is align the terminations of both contracts within options that already existed in contracts that have been approved by the council. We're not extending beyond contractual options that are available to us. But it makes it clear that when those options are extended, those two contracts will terminate and the city will re-procure those services.
and just a follow-up question, we have in front of us the settlement agreement, so the contracts are being extended under existing options, so we won't be voting on another contract at this point. And the options have already been exercised.
They have not pending the execution of the settlement agreement.
Okay, all right, and so we will not have an opportunity to review those again before.
Correct.
Okay, all right, I'm gonna open it up for questions. Yes, Councilman Brown.
Thank you, Chairwoman. Thank you for the explanation, Courtney. I was budget chief, but I know you didn't like it. So just to clarify, I just want to make sure I understand this. So we have to exercise the options in order to align the end dates. If we didn't exercise the options, we would be in a weird thing where we would end one and the other would still be ongoing.
We're exercising the options both as a term of the settlement and to align the end dates.
Okay. And then
Yes, please.
Are we already getting prepared? So if this ends in 2026, which is faster than we realize,
Yes.
when are we already getting ready for putting that bid back out and what that process will be?
Yes.
And have we considered whether or not we could just do this ourselves?
The camera technology?
Like, if you had camera, like, do we need a conduit equivalent, or can we, is this something that if we hire some folks to look at the back end software? I don't know. I haven't.
Yeah, it's mostly, primarily their function is the installation and maintenance of the cameras. Whether or not we could do the ticket issuance, I think is something we could explore. We did before we got into all this, we did do an RFP for cameras, which had a terrible response. So we learned some things through that process. I am in favor of having the municipal court administer as much of this as they feel comfortable, given the competence of the team that we have there now.
Yeah.
And the camera technology that is associated with these contracts is very old and outdated, so I think we have an opportunity to get new and better technology, but We'll see what the market brings.
Okay, that would be something I'd love for us to explore as we're putting out the RFP, because it seems like we do pay a lot monthly for this contract, and there's certain minimums, and if we do have such competent staff, we're already like checking on the back end and finding discrepancies, or like who's gonna give, we might end up sleeping a bit.
Correct, yeah.
Please. Nope, that was actually the last one, yep, I asked two at once.
The committee members, some questions at this point? Yes.
Madam
please.
Chairwoman, can you guys just go over the terms of the settlement agreement?
Sure.
And I guess I would ask the solicitor for her opinion on it.
I can run through the terms and you can offer your opinion. Okay, so we are exercising 2 of the camera contract options through June 2026. And 1 of the parking motor vehicle contract extensions through 2026. Conduit is going to make 2 payments to us totaling $450,000. One $50,000 payment was already made, the rest will be made within a month. And they agreed to reduce the fees on the camera contract by a total of $950,000, which is spread monthly over 2 years to, essentially credit us for previous overpayments. We've already taken those credits in our budget. We also negotiated a bunch of improved service improvements. I will say, fully acknowledge tons of pain points associated with the quality of service provided by the previous vendor related to this contract. And so we tried to address some of that in the settlement. They're mostly high level, promise to work with us on our new court case management system, addition of upgrades for cameras, updating the business rules, things that Conduit should have been doing. I think I would ask Elizabeth to talk to this, the service and the expertise that's being provided under this new vendor is night and day to what we were receiving before. Part of that is because Elizabeth is actively managing them and is on top of the contract, but part of it is that this is what Modaxo does, whereas Conduit is a company that is a hodgepodge of lots of different things, and I think didn't necessarily have the quality of service to provide us. So I don't know if you want to comment on that.
Yeah, so again, like Courtney said, night and day, we have a team now that's dedicated to our contract from the Boston office, so we aren't dealing with vendors who are in the middle of Indiana. When I have a pain point, someone from the Boston office is going to show up, they're going to walk me through it, we're gonna come up with a timeline, and I'm gonna have a resolution in a timely manner. So what we were dealing with, where even still intermittently while they're switching servers, where we would have no services for a day or 2 days, they immediately addressed it. They actually offered us a credit for business loss during those times. And their team has just stayed on top of any issue that we've had. We have cell phone numbers that we can actually get someone on the phone immediately. They'll walk us through it. They'll send IT down. So the services that we're receiving this time versus this time last year, completely different team, completely different ballpark. They're actually professional. They have rendered the services that they've said that they're going to render, and it's made things a lot smoother. So I don't have pain points with them right now that aren't currently being addressed or actively worked on.
Yes, and Councilman, in my opinion, the settlement agreement is very favorable to the city of Providence. I can say that we worked on it very actively for 6 months, down to the word, the comma placement, clauses. We negotiated very heavily to have various clauses and terms that the vendor wanted to include that we typically don't ever agree to as a municipality, and they eventually came around. When it comes to claims, if we had pursued this outside of settlement, there's always a risk that it's unclear what a court would do. And Conduit had a pretty strong counterclaim against the city. And the reason I think this agreement is so favorable to the city is Conduit really came around to wanting to further, and when I say Conduit, I mean Modaxo, wanting to, especially after the contract was assigned to Modaxo when they took over operations, they really wanted an opportunity to prove to the city that they're a better vendor and provide better service. So I can't speak to them, but they essentially aid their counterclaim in the interest of continued business relations with the city of Providence. And we are being credited for the full amount of what we claim we were overcharged. That's pretty unusual in a settlement agreement. Usually there's a discount involved. We are getting no discount. We're getting the full amount that we claimed they owed us. So I do think the settlement agreement is very favorable, and I would recommend approval of it, and I'm happy to answer any additional questions about it.
Just a clarity question. So was this agreement done with the folks at Conduit or the new? That says like, I guess, I'm like, I don't know, it's kind of.
Long and winding.
Yes, there were some complicated moments. Technically, I believe it is a three-way agreement because I'm not privy to the type of relationship that Conduit and Daxo currently have, but they are both signatories to the contract, even though our future business relationship is only with Modaxo. And so it needed sign off from both Conduit, Modaxo, and the sign off from our department that the contract was worthy of presenting to the city council and worthy of approval in our legal opinion. That added a layer of complication, requiring so many levels of sign off. There were a lot of cooks in the kitchen. But I think the final product is something that is really favorable and a good result for the city.
Thank you.
I just have some specific questions. So, as you know, our relationship with Conduit has been strained, and you certainly understand that because you have uncovered exactly the overcharging that has been done. But in terms of the specifics, the option to extend, I assume, is going to be extending the contract under the existing terms. Is that correct? Okay.
Subject to the terms of the settlement.
Right, subject to the terms of the settlement agreement, but are we looking at, for instance, I just need to be reminded on the specifics. What's the per ticket cost for the speed and red light tickets? I mean, we had an issue way back when as to how much money they were charging for every ticket that was issued. Any of those things changing at all?
No, except we're getting the per month discount, which is about $33,000.
Okay, what
Yeah, $40,000.
percentage is that of what we have to pay them?
Our budgeted expenses are. So for fiscal 25, we're budgeting 1.8 million in red light and 1.9 million in speed for expense. And so, that's roughly, call that 4 million. The discount is, we already took the discount, so that's $1 million on top of it. So let's say it's about a fifth, 20%.
And then who is going to be responsible for confirming, Elizabeth, this issue that the invoices are accurate?
We were discussing that, Courtney.
We review them in finance, like part of how we just determined this was through an internal finance review of their invoices. We've continued that, they get signed off for in finance, and then they're gonna go to Elizabeth as it relates to issues of business interruption. But all of that is now done internally at their Crystal and Center.
And will that be annually, is
Monthly before they get paid, we are reviewing it.
okay.
Which is what wasn't happening for, nearly 4 years, which is how we ended up in this mess.
And then we also had issues about, new cameras or deactivating cameras where there's no activity and determining their location.
Yeah.
Is
So we're doing, we do monthly calls with them now that include police and traffic from, DPW and Elizabeth, where we're looking at camera functionality. They actually produce a monthly report to us that shows us how each camera is working. As Elizabeth said, they're much more responsive about fixing them, and they've actually upgraded cameras. They don't have to because our cameras are so old, they're almost impossible to fix sometimes. We do have some conversations to be had about cameras that are available to us that have not been installed, but that's at the city's direction. We are going, the process of identifying places to install cameras is not uncomplicated. But that's under Nate Urso's team, and so we've been working with Nate and police and Elizabeth to determine, if we want to install those cameras. But we're not being charged for cameras that aren't actively working, and there's a contract threshold that we're able to compare it to as part of the monthly bill.
Yeah. Also, what are we charging now for a ticket? Do you know?
It's 50 for speed and 85 for red light, and parking varies depending on what.
And has that changed at all over the
No.
contract? Okay. I know that our auditor may have some questions. Go ahead. Please come to the table.
One question for me. And that is the monthly cost, Courtney, you said it's like 39,000 a month, but we used to do a per camera cost where some were retrofit and we paid one cost and then we paid another cost for others. How does that play into the
The
39,000?
is the credit against the bill. So they'll
Okay,
bill us in their
okay.
normal terms and then
Got
subtract
it.
39.
Okay, thank you. And this is a council person. I know, Elizabeth, you're familiar with this question, but I'm gonna. She requested a report that was provided in the past that includes the number of tickets issued with dollar amounts, number of tickets dismissed with dollar value by types of tickets by judge. And it's not available. And this council person received it in the past. And this council is pretty upset that it's not available because they do not understand that why this data is not available and wouldn't it need to be available just for processing data.
Yeah.
So if it's a change from conduit to Modaxo or.
Yeah, one of the limitations, like, I cannot believe the city ever agreed to the terms of these contracts. Like, one of the problems is that there's like no reporting, the system is old and clunky, our people can't get data out of it. Elizabeth's new case management system is going to allow us to have our own internal reporting that we can build, and our new contract will, when we go out for bid, we're gonna be looking for systems that provide flexible reporting. I'm not aware of that. If you send that to me, we can work to ask them to help us get that.
Okay, can I follow up with one more?
Yes, of
I
course.
don't know if you know this answer, but I'm gonna ask it anyway. Do you know what type of tickets are forgiven the most and why, and how much revenue is lost?
I can't speak to the revenue, but I'm in the courtroom 90% of the sessions, and it's normally overnight parking. Because a lot of people just don't know that there are permits available, especially students or new residents. So 9 out of 10 times when someone comes in and that's usually their story, those are the tickets that are forgiven in hopes that they will turn around and get it. So we educate them when they come in and they say, I received 5 overnight parking tickets. I didn't have an alternative parking. I don't know what to do. That's why I'm here. We educate them, we give them the handouts for the application for the overnight parking permit. And the judge will usually, especially students or people who have demonstrated a need, forgive those tickets so that they do have the funds instead of paying the fines to get the permit and solve the problem.
Okay.
And if that data is, I'm sorry, if the auditor is asking for the data, if the data could be provided to everyone, that would be great. Yes, Councilor Sanchez.
Thanks, Jordan. Just a couple clarity questions. Courtney, when you talk about discount, is that the same thing as credit?
Yes.
Okay. And then my next question, I know it's kind of been answered, but can you just summarize for the public, people of Rhode Island, on why we couldn't go with a new vendor, put it out to RFP now before agreeing to this?
So I think two reasons. One, we'd like to be able to RFP both of these services at the same time to maybe untangle them from each other because they both use the same software. So if we RFP'd one and not the other, we have this problem where we still have to operate their software. So this is gonna allow us to separate parking. There are companies now that do parking as like what are parking meters that interact with our parking meters that would make enforcement much better. And then there's new camera technology, so we'll be able to put those out separately. Two, in order for us to recoup this nearly $1 million, part of the settlement was that it comes in credits as part of the contract extension. And so the city could have decided to go try to fight this in court, but as Megan mentioned, we had liability associated with the contract terms that we would have been fighting about for a long time. So this allows us to get a discount on the service, frankly, work with a company that is much better and doing a good job for us, implement this court case management system so that Elizabeth has a technology system separate from parking and camera enforcement, and prepare to RFP this for a 2026 implementation.
Just to follow up quickly, that was great, thank you. If we didn't agree to this, what would be the current expiration date on each contract?
The camera actually expired in June. They're working at risk right now because we don't have an agreement. The parking was approved more recently.
It was approved in 2022. It was last.
Yeah, because we did that one.
I want to say it's last fall.
And so we're only doing one extension on that through 2026, so it would have been June 2025.
So that, okay.
And I guess my final question for me is, I know that we had the audit, internal audit report in December of 2023. And I just wanted to make sure that certainly the results of this were incorporated in any kind of change we're making.
Correct. The results of that are all both primarily in the business process, like understanding if cameras are working, holding people accountable, checking invoices, all of that is important to that, along with overbilling in those pieces.
And I appreciate Elizabeth, your work. I think it gives us some degree of confidence that this will be changing drastically moving forward. Any other questions? Okay, any motion?
Make a motion to approve number one.
Second. Okay, the motion to approve number one is made by Councilor Taylor, seconded by Councilor Ingersoll. All in favor? Aye. All opposed? Thank you so much. And thank you.
Thank you.
For your help.
Involved.
Thank you very much. Okay, this is
Hi, Jeff. See you.
Madam Clerk, please read item number 2.
Item 2, resolution authorizing approval of the following piggyback contract award by the Board of Commissioners supply in accordance with section 21-26B1 of the Code of Ordinances. United rental, $718,305. Department of Public Works.
Okay. Oh, hello, Director. Let's see. Yes.
Patricia Quinn, Director of Department of Public Works.
Thank you so much for visiting us this evening.
Thank you, Matt.
Okay, So, please tell us what you have on this, item number 2.
So this is pretty much an annual expenditure of the Department of Public Works to supplement our fleet for snow operations for the upcoming winter season. It boils down to 15 trucks that we use to not only help out the Parks Department with their duties when it snows, but the rest of the city as well.
Okay, and these are, 15, I'm sorry. How much are you looking for here, just for the purchase of the truck?
So there are rentals of trucks, and then there's also that comes to about 500 and, exact number?
18, 305.
And then 560, yes. And then there's an additional contingency for repairs of 200,000. We're responsible for every single thing related to those vehicles while they're in our custody. They have to be basically brought back exactly as we received them.
So my question to you is, we haven't had much snow.
Sorry.
Reflex. I just am wondering why it is we need additional trucks with scrubbers.
We have to be ready, and so certainly there's competition for these vehicles, and we don't want to be in a position where we're waiting around until December or January, and then it does snow, and we don't have enough trucks to handle the weather that does come our way. We have been lucky. The last 2 winters have been, in the grand scheme of things, relatively uneventful. There were a few snowstorms, but nothing colossal. I feel like I'm cursing myself with every word coming out of my mouth. But we need to be prepared. So between our own trucks, there are literally mechanics right at this very moment at our garage prepping our vehicles for snow operations. And then these vehicles are meant to augment it because we frankly don't have enough of our own vehicles stock. This is actually a more cost efficient way to augment the fleet for the winter.
And how many trucks do we have presently without this?
City trucks for snow, we have 47 that will be utilized by DPW and 4 will go over to parks for their operations. And then we also contracted vendors who work for the city during snow events. And today we have, I believe, 33 vendors. Though the trucks that they bring vary. They can just be, landscaper trucks with a plow on it or a pickup with a plow on it. One of the vendors, for example, that we've used in years past, who could be relied upon for bringing us, some really nice big trucks with snow plows, has opted out this year. And so we don't always have the same size vehicles from the vendors, but they're very important to the operations.
Okay, councilors. Questions? Yes, Councilor Anderson.
Thank you, Chairman. Thank you for being here, Director. A few just super quick questions. Does this also include any assistance for like plowing the sidewalks? Because I know DPW is in charge of the sidewalks that are city property.
No, these are strictly road vehicles.
Okay.
We do have a couple of smaller, like Bobcat kind of things that we need to make sure we use, especially like on certain areas where there's bridges. And
Yeah.
walkways.
We don't need any.
But these aren't those.
Okay. And like, I don't want to like super jinx you, so I apologize. If the trucks really aren't used, because climate change is a real thing, is this 200,000 something we definitely spend, or is it only if there are issues and we have to bring them back up to the standard that we rented them from?
Right, it's, if, let's say it never snows all winter, we wouldn't spend money on, we wouldn't need to spend money on repairing it.
Okay, so it's just like holding it.
Not the way that they otherwise would.
And is this like the same amount that we would have spent on this last year?
I believe it's the same as last year, if not, it's the same ballpark. I didn't have last year's number. Right, but
Yes, Councilor Sanchez.
Thank you, Director. I'm trying to read the rental agreement. Are they all the same exact type of truck or are they different?
No, no, 10 of the trucks are larger, 5 yard, they're called 5 yard trucks, and 5 of them are a little bit smaller. I think, that represents a difference from last year. I will double check, but I know that in conversations with our highway superintendent, Sal Solomon, last year, he was expressing that he felt we needed to kind of change the dynamic of what kinds of trucks we were getting from United Rentals. And now, especially in reaction to the fact that some of our vendors aren't bringing us those big trucks that we need, I think we're getting more big trucks this year from United than we may have in years past.
My next question, it's kind of just a bigger approach. Is the city's like finance team in support and aware of this type of contract expenditure? I guess that would probably be for our chief maybe, because I'm obviously talking about, there's some pending possible expenditures coming our way, so I think this would be a good one to take a look, see if this is something that we really need at this moment.
So the answer to your first question is yes. I mean, we certainly don't go out for this kind of procurement without it going all the way through the finance division. And I hear you in terms of, I'm wearing a t-shirt today and I'm boiling right now. I get it, but, put that up against, this is New England and you never know. And you don't want to be in a position where we get this big snowstorm and we don't have enough to handle it. And your constituents will go bananas and you'll hear it and I'll hear it and Mayor will hear it. People won't be able to get where they need to be and so forth, it's a safety issue. And so it's kind of like, it's in a way, because we don't control the weather, it's a gamble, I guess, because you just don't know. But I would much rather have trucks at the ready that I maybe didn't need at the end of the winter. I can look back and say, guess I didn't need all those trucks, rather than a huge blizzard where I don't have them.
Right.
Because as I said, there's competition for these, and so if we were to say, no, we're gonna wait, then when we really need them, they won't be there. Someone else will take them.
So I guess on that, like the 15 or whatever the number was we rented last year, like how percentage wise, like how much did we use those?
We used all.
Like, that was.
Yes.
Just, I want to follow up. These are all reserved, right, for us as of right
Yes.
now?
Yes.
So again, like the director says that I think we need to take advantage of it because, obviously we have no snow. But if we get one snowstorm, I'm certainly gonna want to answer phone calls.
Yeah.
We're all gonna get the calls.
Yeah.
And the school kids are gonna go to school, whatever, and we need trucks. We don't have unfortunately enough trucks of ourselves. But like the director said, when we try to, it's okay, let's wait, it's not gonna be any snow. Now we need them, sorry, they're all gone. So, and plus they're newer trucks, they're automatic, they're less likely to break down than the trucks we have, so. But it's kind of like fire department, well, why do we need, fires are down, why do we need fire trucks? Well, it's that one fire where someone's hanging out the window. Yeah. So I'm in favor of it, is what I'm trying to say, but I just wanna make sure they're reserved, because I know before in the past, they weren't reserved, and we tried to get them, and we're out of luck. And the vendors not stepping up like they used to be. I don't know, I think that's true, I don't know.
I think there are just some vendors who, because we haven't had the massive amounts of snowstorms, that they some of them, they're just not interested. The feedback we've gotten from a few that are not participating this year is that, it's a lot of work to get their trucks ready and then it doesn't snow.
Right.
They don't feel like taking the risk again. Some have just kind of aged out. They've been doing it a really long time and they don't want to do it anymore. We have
They
gotten
moved to
some
Florida.
new.
They moved to Florida when they get flooded out down there.
Exactly. Trucks are floating.
On that note, if there's no other questions, I'd like to make a motion to approve number 2.
Oh, second.
Okay, motion to approve, number 2, made by Counselor Taylor, seconded by Counselor Ingeval, all in favor?
Aye.
All opposed? Thank you, Director.
Thank you.
Have a good night. Good night.
Okay, we will now have item number 3 read. Thank you.
Resolution authorizing approval of the following change order contract award of the Board of Comprehensive Plan in accordance with section 21-2064 of the Code of Ordinances. Mill City Construction Inc. 524,534.37 cents. Department of Public Project.
Okay, and who do we have here this evening, Director? Yes. Well, thank you very much. Please stand and take pictures. It's not about to give us a quick vote. Please take a knee and your
John James, Director of Public Property. Phil DeSanti, Director of Program Management, Downs Construction.
Thank you so much, gentlemen, for coming. Mr. DeSanti, nice to see you again.
See you, Madam Chair.
Who would like to start on this?
I can start. Yeah, that's fine. I can start.
Thank you.
So Mill City is doing phase 3 of the media center renovations. We did 15 new elementary school renovations. And the last phase 3 was for the project. During the process over the summertime as they were completing, and many of those rainstorms we had that stay loose actually, which we haven't seen in a long time. They witnessed some areas where the water was leaking down into the new media center that was being renovated, as well as adjacent areas. And then through conversations with some of the staff, they were told about other leaks that were happening. So in an effort to protect that investment in new media centers, we requested a proposal for them to investigate, in many cases, replace 2 roofs. One is on asbestos, the other is fine sign, as well as repair the brick to stop the water infiltration into those areas.
Okay, I'm sorry, Delcesto, Feinstein, and
Yeah.
which one? Which other?
Those are the 2 that this change order is for.
And the brick replacement was also at Feinstein?
They're both, yes.
Okay, and in terms of just trying to get some clarity here, those were roof leaks?
Correct. There were roof leaks that they witnessed as they were completing the work of the media center for renovation.
And where's the roof new?
No, they were older roofs. They were probably 15 years old. And the majority of it was really the brick repair. The brick was deteriorating around where the roof tied in, so it's flashing. Building envelope roof replacement.
So these were unexpected.
They were unexpected.
Okay, and can you just tell me, I'm sorry, this is coming, so this would be funded through a capital revolving fund. I just wanted to ask which fund that is, Director?
The 2019 bond fund.
The 2019, I'm sorry.
It was a bond fund, 2019 bond fund.
And.
Yeah.
Oh, sorry, go ahead.
Well, they're using the capital revolving fund as well. So the capital revolving fund is that fund that was created between PPSD and the city, both putting money into to do maintenance on projects.
I was talking about this. Sorry. I'm sorry. So the capital revolving fund, you're saying that is, I do remember speaking about this. I'm so sorry, I'm taking kind of a side track here, but I didn't know that it was PPSD and the city that created this revolving.
Yeah, both entities had put in, I believe at the time, it was about $3.5 million each. I think the original fund was supposed to be about $8 million. It was about 3 years ago, if I remember correctly. And that was created a fund to be able to do maintenance work on some of the projects or any high priority or emergency projects that need to be done. That fund revolves so that make sure that RIDE has approved these projects, and RIDE will reimburse, I should say, between 82 and 91%. And actually on the media center projects, in some cases, they've reimbursed up to 100% of those projects.
Okay, And what would be the, I'm just interested, what is the balance, the current balance of that capital?
I don't know exactly. Yeah.
Chief, do you have any information?
Yeah.
Here,
Still
You
sworn,
were already
thank
sworn in.
you. So what happens is every year it replenishes some amount and the school building committee approves a slate of projects against that amount. So for this fiscal year, most of the money has been prescribed already. There's a little bit of emergency funding put to the side. There's some money for fire safety projects put to the side. That said, this is the fund that PPSD has threatened to remove their money from as part of our funding dispute. So we are taking on new projects until that's resolved going forward to ensure that we have the money there to pay for what's already been allocated.
Okay. Yes, Councilor Sanchez.
So there's money in that fund for this,
Correct, this is already.
it's been approved.
And this goes to the school building committee, the facilities committee, for the project list goes to them for approval. They already approved this.
And so it's funded half and half by city, half by,
Originally, and now it revolves with ride reimbursement.
with ride reimbursement.
Uh-huh.
Okay. Yes, Councilor Annabelle.
Thank you. Can I ask about that ride reimbursement? So if we authorize this 524 and some extra money, what, can you explain the ride reimbursement? Like, is this a city encumbrance or is this gonna be reimbursed?
They reimburse like between typically 80 and 95%, depending on the bonuses and the structures. As Joe mentioned, for some of the media center work, they've done even higher. It's at least 80%, which is like whatever the housing bond, the housing aid percentage is set to, it gets reimbursed at that rate.
Okay.
Yeah, and just to add that the Providence's base rate is 82%, so you're guaranteed always 82%. And then with bonuses and incentives, you get up between 90 and 95%. It's hard to figure out how that formula works, but it's at least a 91 and then potentially 95. And then on the media center projects specifically, you could get almost up to 100%.
And the money goes back there so
Yep.
that next year we have some amount of money for ongoing maintenance of buildings, which from my perspective, we need like way more of. So we're trying to figure out how that might work moving forward.
Yes, please.
Two other questions. One is, so just to, ask in a different way, the question that the chairwoman asked, so I'll make sure I understand. So the rain, issues, the leaks were unrelated to the construction that was happening there. It was just, there were other issues in the building that then affected the media center. Like,
Yeah.
doing the construction on the media center didn't cause any.
No, the renovations were inside the space. The leaks that occurred were either right above the roof above it or 2 stories above it. In some cases, the library might be on the first floor and the actual leak was on the second or third floor. And would leak through a classroom down into the media center as well. So none of that work was impacted by the renovation.
Okay. That happened to be once.
It just happened to be something they witnessed while they were there.
And then a follow-up is, our other projects, I know we have a lot of other renovation projects underway. Have we made sure that other projects where we're doing some substantial renovation aren't then affected by other issues in the buildings? We're spending all this money and it's a waste of money because then it's just gonna rain inside.
Yeah, to the best of our ability, we are making sure that we go and do what we call forensic investigation. Wherever we get behind a wall, or a ceiling, or up in a roof, we'll do our best to look at it. But as you know, the age of most of these buildings are 75 years old. What might be good on Tuesday
Yeah.
might be bad by the next Tuesday because they're just, some of them are constantly deteriorating. But we do put allowances in there as well, so that if we think there's an issue, like with the masonry repair, we did have some allowances in there for masonry repairs on some of the other buildings as well as these two, but it just wasn't enough.
Okay, thank you.
Yes, Councilor
Thank you.
Sanchez.
Just follow up, just to understand the process. So they completed the media renovations. And then they saw rain leak and some brick issues, and then, so right there, they come to you, and then what happens?
So we observe all the time, so I have individuals on my staff that actually go around and do on-site visits, and during that, one of those site visits with the construction team, for example, at Del Sesto, they just painted the wall, they had just put the carpet down and the ceiling tile, they came in, and there was a stain on the ceiling tile and water running down from the wall, so at that point, it was pretty easy to understand where that water leak was coming from. And another occasion, they came back, I was over a weekend, and it was water puddled up on the ground. So it's those kind of things that happen, if you recall, I mean, we had some really big downpours in the summertime, so it was hard initially to figure out where it's coming from. And what happened is, in some cases, it pulled up so high that it was running onto it wasn't the roof that was leaking, it was actually the brick running behind the brick and down the sidewall. But that's what the observation happened over a couple of rainstorms and Del Sesto, Feinstein.
To also answer your question, Councilor, we since the only word I can think about since left in 3 weeks is kerfuffle. Since the kerfuffle we had with RIDE about school facilities, we've put in a number of controls around how work gets approved and comes to the board. This is a little bit of cleanup from when that wasn't in place. So we now have a weekly meeting where Joe brings issues like this to our team and we determine the right procurement mechanism. Sometimes it's an emergency and we have to ask for an approval to pay or something like that. But that all comes through the police department and purchasing. We also now have a weekly meeting with PPSD operations team where we're reviewing all the projects that we agree we're gonna do. We're talking about the status of them. Nothing gets paid for out of the revolving fund unless PPSD, the city, and the school board and RIDE have all approved to them. Because what we uncovered was that there was a lot of like 2 out of 4 entities knew what was happening and the other 2 objected. And so we're trying to put some better governance in process around that, which hopefully will result in like fewer late ads after the fact kind of requests.
Thank you. Yeah, that definitely is super helpful. Cause yeah, I mean, I guess 500,000, it seems like quite a bit, just to try to understand. So they showed you guys were aware of it. They just start fixing it and send us the bill, or well, that's kind of what I'm trying to.
No, there's a very clear process when we get a change request, is we want to see a proposal, we want to see what the work is, the material, the labor breakdown. So there's a detailed quote on it. And again, these are for 2 roofs, and masonry repair. So it was quite a bit of work that had to be done between the 2.
So they like broke down exactly the.
Yeah, they break down the cost for everything as to what the roof, because in many cases, it's the construction manager hiring the roofer, so the roofer's cost, the labor cost, the mason's cost, the labor for the mason, all this. We have a breakdown of what those costs are.
Thank you.
It's the follow-up question in terms of the process you just described with regard to the capital revolving fund. The city administration also monitoring the contracts, the payments under the contracts, the original contracts for each of the projects.
Correct. They all go through us.
Okay, and with that kind of weekly check-in,
Exactly.
exactly. Coordinating all the phases.
The
and what
status of everything that's outstanding, where we build to, what we expect, we have full cash flows. It's not just the revolving fund, it's for also the $125 million bond we just took out, so that we don't have unpaid vendors. All of those things have been resolved. And, you know, a lot of that has been getting the finance team integrated into John's department to have oversight to that.
And that since when?
I think it was September that all of that, I don't know.
It was late summer. It was late
know what
summer.
Something going on.
I don't know what month it is, I don't wanna lie. It is, I think we were noted, like, we got a corrective action notice in June-ish, and so we worked for a while to get the right processes in place and move people around, and we have a way better systems around all of this.
I'm gonna ask one final question on the process. How is it that the council can be updated on phases and spending and things like that. I mean, I would love to work out some sort of reasonable.
We're happy to do that. I will also, yeah, I mean, when you
Okay.
invite us, we'll come. I'll also say that you have a seat on the facilities committee. They get a lot of updates on all of this. Kyle now, I think,
Yes.
has taken that, so, and he like takes great notes. He's actively engaged, so I think Kyle is also a resource.
That is correct.
But we're happy to also present to this.
Great, thank you. Okay. I think we've discussed this. Any more questions on this particular item?
Make a motion to approve number 3.
Second.
Motion to approve number 3 by Councilor Taylor, seconded by Councilor Vanderbilt. All in favor? Aye. All opposed. Madam Clerk, please read item number 4.
Item 4, resolution authorizing approval by following the change order contract award for the water company supply in accordance with section 21, resolution 64 of the Code of Ordinances. Marine construction, $1,138,874. Retirement of facility property.
Okay. Thank you.
Yep, I'll start. So for school high school, just to give everybody a reminder, phase 1 was the cupola renovation, the lobby, and the renovation of the auditorium. During that process, we actually did solicit the scope of work from that contract at that time. And their cost for these services was about $3.3 million. After that, the city did, I think it was the administration, did try to solicit some of this work from some vendors. They had very poor turnout, and the numbers were very sporadic and erratic, actually. They didn't have the full scope of work, and they were very high. During this past summer, we were doing work on the phase 2, which was a capital revolving project to do a new dance studio, as well as a multi-purpose room and a sound system for those 2 spaces there as they, hope moves forward to develop this theater program and more of an arts program there as well. We did solicit a proposal from that contractor, Mary, and asked them to provide the audio visual, the sound system, the curtains, the lobby, the projector, the projection screen, the infrastructure that was there. And that is what this change order is for. This work is not been completed yet. This is work that we're in the process of procuring the actual equipment so that they can utilize that space as a true arts program during this school year.
And again, I'm gonna ask for where this money is coming from, because we have a different account closed.
Yeah, this would have been from the 2019, so this would have been the original bond.
Is that CIP? It says?
School bonds.
Yeah, it was a school bond.
Okay.
Yep.
Okay. I will just also say that I have been certainly working with you on the completion of this project, because as we all know, our schools have been assigned different, they're design schools now, and this, and Hope is the art school, and they really can't use the auditorium, which is absolutely spectacular, without a sound system. And so it's sad. We've also, I think, missed an opportunity to rent that space because we do not have a sound system. I think it's been incredible that we've had to wait so long, but I appreciate you moving this project along. Any questions? Yes, Councilor Vanderbilt.
Thank you, Chairwoman, and thank you for the presentation, and for the sound system. I think Chairwoman and I have both held communities there, and it feels so silly to be in this beautifully new renovated auditorium, and like carrying in your own speaker, like real Leslie Knope situations, but, for this, you had mentioned, Joe, or Mr. DeSanti, the original was 3.3 million, and now it looks like with the change order will be 3.098. What?
That actually 1.8. The other, the original base contract was for the multi-purpose room dance studio.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
But you had said that the original scope and solicited this work. Did a lot change in terms of like what they budgeted for it?
No, not really. I think we're actually getting a better, more enhanced system than we originally received, the quote for 3.3 or $3.4 million.
And yep, that was the main question, just like if this was similar to what they were changing on. Because it would be a shame if we had to do another change order if this was a proposal they put in 3 years ago, and they're like, oh, shoot, you know.
No, we completely vetted this out. This is the final number. And we also are holding them to a completion date, which is around early February, so that they can have an event there that's already scheduled for mid-February.
Yes, Councilor Sanchez.
Thank you. Just for my own educational purposes, regarding the 2019 bond, I guess the first question is, where does that money sit? And how much of it is like unspent? Because we're here almost 5 years later, tapping another 1.8 million from it. So I'm just kind of curious on what does that balance look like? And
For this, most of it is, we'll have to follow up with you again, but this is part of the phase 1 projects, which are mostly done. So there shouldn't be very much.
but there's like this money is there,
Um,
like the change order amount, like that balance is in that fund available to use?
it must have been previously like allocated for it, because I don't think there's much left to spend, so it must have been encumbered, but I will follow up for you and get that.
That would be great. Yeah, if we could all have that.
Yeah.
And I guess this is back to the question about having some sort of sum up where we are. With, you know, it would be if we maybe broke it down to 4 phases, just to see where we are. And I think that might be helpful in that so we can have a $400 million bond phase 4. It'd be nice to have another meeting just on the finances of the phase 1, 2, and 3. The summary,
Yes,
if
I mean,
possible, or documents.
if the current dispute with PBSD can't be resolved, phases 3 and 4 will continue. So, I think it will be important to brief the council in either direction. I'd like to try to get us to a place where we know the future of that, so that we're briefing you on where we think things are likely to move. But we briefed the staff this week. If we have to go to the levels of funding that are being demanded, we're not going to be able to afford the debt service on any future bonding. So beyond to the 125 we just took out, we won't be looking for the others, and everyone has been made aware of that. Hopefully it won't come to that. But we have lots of documents that we could show you that show the status of the construction and the status of the cash.
We ask a lot, and I appreciate it. I'm
Yeah.
sorry, I feel very repetitive in the ask, but I think it's important.
No, and I don't think we can move forward on the 400 until we come back to the council, because I think the council was misled about the implications of the finances related to that by RIDE. That's the one where they told us we weren't gonna have to pay any money.
Yeah.
And we now understand that that's not likely true, and so I've set an expectation with RIDE that we're gonna need to come back to the council before we borrow that money. We're authorized, but we don't have to borrow it, and so I think there absolutely should be some vetting about that tranche, for sure.
Okay, all right. Any other questions on this item?
You can walk through some before. I don't ask questions, I just approve it.
Approved by Councilor Taylor, seconded by Councilor Ingersoll, all in favor?
Aye.
All opposed. And Madam Clerk, please read the next agenda item.
Item 5, resolution authorizing approval of the code of conduct of work of the code of conduct supply in accordance with section 21-26B4 of the code of ordinances. Marin Construction, $1,565,363.27. Department of Public Property.
Okay. Mr. DeSantis.
During the renovation of Pleasant View Elementary School, asbestos is covered there, some hazmat material, so this is part of the change order that the $4.5 million In addition to that, PTSD had requested a new updated security system with no cameras included in the original scope of work there. These are projects that were right approved back in 2019 that didn't have security, clocks, PA, IT, and those kind of things. So as PTSD is working, and we're working with them to develop those standards, the camera system is not included, no security system is included, the electronic lock systems, as well as access control and clock location. So it's part of the request to make that school similar to the other schools of the 21st century security. We're asked to include those additional scope of work. So,
It's a very large chunk of money.
yeah, so we did ask Ryan to increase the MOA for this so that we know that we will get reimbursed at least. In this case, we definitely would at least get the 91% of the security upgrade. We did request it, and we did receive the approval from RIDE. So with this $4.5 million, we will be guaranteed to at least receive 91% of that cost back.
Can I just ask, I mean, this is just one school of many, updates. This is a renovation, correct? For the Pleasant View Elementary School. I mean, was this the additional work on the security system, et cetera? Is this something we'll see at other renovations?
Yes.
What?
That we'll see at other renovations?
Yeah, I mean, have we underbid? It seems to me that we've
No, this is this project was a old building project that was like a hodgepodge of, the way the scope on Pleasant View came together was not consistent with how we're renovating schools now. So for example, there was no playground, and so we're now trying to figure out how to install a big playground this year. There was no scope for security, so we're now trying to figure that out. And so it's been, right, we've had to figure out how to get a generator in there. So this is an old legacy project from the old OPM that we've, gotten over the finish line. Kids are in school there, but it's not consistent with how we're managing school projects now, where all of these things are part of the RFP from the beginning, because you heard Joe reference, like there's standards for what's included in a renovation. All those standards are set from the RFP process, and that's not how this project was run.
So are we gonna see this again, my question? So I appreciate the explanation. So that you're saying this is a unicorn, basically.
Yeah.
That this is not something that, because of the condition of the building and the age of the building, that this is not something that is not foreseen.
I mean, this is a renovation, but like, this building was like, holy good. Like, it's, it's different from what's gonna happen for the Messer West Broadway School that's gonna be built from the ground, but like renovation is a loose term, because like they moved out of the building was gutted, and they redid it.
And again, this account, where is this money coming from?
Should be that 20.
Phase one.
Yes,
Phase one in 2019 bond, is that what you said?
yes.
Right.
That's what it is, yes.
Right. Okay, questions from the committee? Yes, please.
What do we get reimbursed? So this isn't all our cost, right?
No, so it's typically, like I said, base rate is 82, but because this is security upgrades, you absolutely guaranteed all the bonuses, so it'll be a minimum 91% reimbursement on this.
Any other questions? Okay.
Make a motion to approve number 5.
All right, motion to approve made by Councilor Taylor, seconded by Councilor Sanchez, all in favor?
Aye.
All opposed? Recommend approval. Thank you.
Thank you, appreciate it.
Okay, Madam Clerk, please read the next agenda item.
Item 6, resolution authorizing approval of the funding approval to pay award by the Board of Contract Supply in accordance with section 21, the dash 26B2 of the Code of Ordinances. Employers Association of the Northeast, $30,000, Department of People and
I do. Well, what's your chief people officer? You can hear it.
Gee, very nice to see you this evening. Thank you for coming.
Same, happy to be here.
What do you have before us this evening?
So this is a request that was recommended to City Council and Finance Committee for professional education and training services from providing the Employers Association of the Northeast, their professional services nonprofit, as well as Rhode Island that we worked with over the past 2 years. It's actually subsequent to a prior approval that was afforded to the Employers Association of the Northeast as an extension to our work development support. Last year by the Board of Contract and Supply, and on that renewal of sorts this year was forwarded to the council for your review and approval. The short of it is that, as you all may know, we are underway, second quarter into a pretty significant restructure of the Department of People and Culture and Human Resources, and a part of our needs assessment. As we were in our workforce analysis, which has also been included and provided to you as part of our strategic plan, was a significant need for learning and development support. So we do not house the human capital to provide the degree of support that is asked of us. And therefore, we need some professional consulting and education services of the Employers Association of the Northeast, which, after undergoing an assessment with the purchasing department, is my understanding that they're actually identified it right now as a single source to us, and continue to what our plans have been over the past 2 years. So we've actually been working with them already. We have been good work with them already. So for the new Department of Occupational Health and Safety, they've been the ones that have supported us for training such as reasonable suspicion. And other items, we have trainings that have been slated and set in terms of our planning with support of the departments that fall under the City Council that are underway that actually are part of this proposal. Services to like coaching to staff in the city, as well as other facets of the transitional support needed for the HR professionals in the department. As you all know, part of this modernization effort, for the degree of learning that's necessary for them to do their jobs confidently and well. So this is a continuance of that work. The intent is, while Dr. Pinto and myself have worked to strategize what the needs are, learning development, it's also a priority of the administration citywide. And I think it goes without saying that we all benefit from it in different areas we need it, in certain spaces it's actually required. And for that, DPC, as we call ourselves short now, Department of People and Culture, has established an internal cross-functional team that's slated to actually train with each other in the first week of December. The intent will be, following the survey that was done earlier in the year, is to strategize and across a wider span cross-functional approach with multiple departments across the city to house the transition of the learning and development services we provide in-house in collaboration with other departments. But this is in a stage of really early infancy. There's a lot of steps that will go there, none of that which negate or supersede the ongoing need for training support, which is what this professional services organization provides an extension of at this time. So what we are requesting to put aside is essentially what we communicated when we allocated the money in our budget, which was also proposed and approved, was to be to continue this work, right? This is why we asked for this degree of money, to be able to continue this work. So the idea is to provide that essential, we do not house that human capital internally to provide all the services, and some of which are specialized services owned by the Employees Association. That this is going to help us segue into that bridge and transition into the work that we need to do in the future. I welcome any questions.
Go ahead. Thank you.
Thank you, Paul. First question, about how many city employees use these services or take advantage of them?
So these are,
Does that question make sense?
It's a hard question to answer, because I can't give you like a count of how many people.
I guess, like,
physically have been trained by this group, I could not give you that, but what I could provide you is that we have provided trainings to full departments, to teams of individuals within departments, some of which have been coaching for personnel matters, specialized needs of sorts. So we touch a variety of departments. Part of this was to support some of the earlier stage learning that happened in the tail end of the last fiscal year into the continuous learning for some of the restructuring that took place on the county departments that fall under the council side of the house. So when I got here, a lot of the work was starting with like restructuring of the job description, hierarchical structuring, and some of that organizational design work. When that happened, there's a learning loop that follows and subsequently, because you have individuals that are in these new roles or in roles that they haven't been in, some individuals that are in leadership positions. So we've provided a series of trainings for those units as well as other departments across the city, but I could not give you count how many people have actually exercised.
I guess what I'm looking
Training is
for is like an example of like, if they provide like a video training and then you like send it out to like a department, can you just like,
So it
it
depends
doesn't have to
on-
be like a really long, just some quick
Yeah,
thing to
Of course.
understand, yeah.
So this organization has been around for over 100 years, and they provide a variety of different trainings. They have an entire learning development catalog. And these trainings are acquired, but then tailored or customized to the audience which it's going to be provided to. So when they provide these trainings, they're owned by them, but they're very unique in nature because they're tailored to our needs. Which is why one of the benefits of having them is they're local to Rhode Island. So in doing that, I guess the more recent example would be like reasonable suspicion training, which is probably less unique training in nature, but that touched a variety of different departments on our blue collar workforce. But then for the transition of like management services, we had a training that was done last year that it housed a representation of 3 different departments and a span of 12 people. So it varies. It's not really a concrete number I can give you there. What I can tell you is that we have touched a variety of different departments across the board. And that they have served as a pretty effective bridge to the extension that we need for learning and development support that's ongoing.
And just one more
Yes,
question,
please.
thank you. Do we use anyone else for any type of similar work? Or is this pretty much it in terms of consultants for worker development?
So we have different services that are provided uniquely that are like accounted for and managed by like our unions per se. But some of the education supports that they provide, they own themselves, and very few actually offer that. So in going through this, there aren't many on the list of that can do the degree of training that they provide. So I'll give you an example. We have a very new HR business partner. While the term is new to the city, the concept of that role in the body of work is actually not. But they offer a very unique program specific to that transition from going from being the coordinator, the individual contributor to an actual management position that's unique to them. There's not many that would be able to do that. So because of that, and in a variety of different factors in our assessment, we approached the purchasing department here tonight to try to vet what our options are, what that looks like based on the ongoing needs that were there. And you know, certain things that they provide their license provide, such as like the disc assessment, which essentially, I'll give you a really quick example, not to leave this point, but for some of our management staff, that's like ongoing, you know, kind of deals with different personalities in the workplace. We're a very passionate organization in the city. You know, that gives you different personalities that are kind of categorized, and you know how to measure, communicate, or to work or collaborate with these individuals. But they're a licensed disc provider. Not many people are licensed to even provide the training, utilize that as a part of the training. They actually own the 10 and 5, and that's just another example. I don't know if that answers your question, but I'm trying to give you a variety of different examples of how they've been used and some of what they will continue to do across the board as a transition.
So when you say like licenses, is that who owns those? Like other like training groups or?
So to be a disc like facilitator, you have to actually be licensed to do that. You know, for instance, like I'm a licensed senior professional human resources, I'm a licensed professional human resources.
Right.
So, you know, if that's something that they own and it's a component of what they use for some of the training.
Are you talking about this group that's in front of us?
The group, I'm talking about the concept of the kind of training. So the disc, for example, is a concept or it's a learning product that you have to be licensed to be able to actually provide.
Mhm.
That's one of the pieces that they have, but that's, I would say, is a fraction of the piece of the entire catalog of what they offer. And I would be happy to give you an extension of what that entire learning and development catalog is. The hope is that we actually can develop something like that in-house.
Right.
Because there is the ongoing need that's there. I just got a training request earlier today, you know, in terms of being able to provide that support in-house. When you don't, you have to go outside, you know, to be able to source that or collaborate with it to develop it, all of which takes time. Now, so not only can they provide these very unique trainings and do it tailored to what our needs are here, but they can actually do it in a pretty fast and expeditious fashion as a local nonprofit to Rhode Island. They understand what our landscape, they understand what our needs are, which has been very helpful.
Yeah, no, I was asking those questions because like it seems pretty fair, like that price point for the type of work that they do, so I'm in support of it.
They're also a nonprofit.
From what I've heard.
They're not a for-profit organization, that's the
No.
way, you know, yeah, so any other questions?
I have just a clear, you go first.
No,
I was just, I want to be clear, is this I know this is a sole source contract? I mean, in other words, yes, is it a sole source contract? In other
My
words,
understanding is it's single source and
single source.
continuation of the work that we've already done with them.
Okay, is this an extension of a contract that we've done with them?
It would be an extension of the services that we're using for them this year, but also in our vetting process, we identified that they are a professional services organization.
Right.
That might actually exempt under chapter 37. So in that process, we you know, the idea is that because we've already started this process in terms of the learning and development extension support that we have, based on what our plan is that we presented to you all prior, this would be a continuance of that.
Okay. Do you have anything else to add on this, or?
Sure.
Yes, please. Please, you can come in and be sworn in.
My name is Alejandro Tirado, I'm the director of Citizen.
Thank you so much for joining us.
And
Is there a penalty of perjury that the testimony you're about to give is the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth?
yeah, the only thing I can add to Chief Whisper, what we provided is in relation to the procurement process. As he mentioned, we look at the Rhode Island statute, chapter 37, -2-54. There is a list of items that are excluded from competition, and this item fell under the list. In addition to that, we look at the ordinance, of Code of Ordinances, section 2154. We put a notice of intent to award to the public. We didn't receive any questions from the public, and so we decided to proceed.
Is there supposed to be any backup letter attached to this that we might be missing?
I am not sure, but if necessary, I actually have a letter from the Employers Association that they provided me to support this.
No worries, no worries. Thank you. Like, obviously, thank you very much for your testimony. I, you know, think the value, you at least convinced me of the value of the program, at least why we selected this particular organization. So any other questions on our committee members?
I make a motion, we approve number 6.
No, I don't have a question. I just noticed that we
Second.
do have a lot.
Motion to approve made by Councilor Taylor, seconded by Councilor Sanchez, all in favor?
Aye.
Aye, all opposed. Thank you so much, Steve.
Thank you.
Okay. Madam Clerk, if you would please read the next agenda item.
Item 7, resolution authorizing approval of the following approval to pay a loan for the Board of Commissioners to sign according to section 21-26B1 of the Code of Ordinances. United Board of Rhode Island, $1,057,800. FEMA.
Penalty of perjury that the testimony you're about to give is the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth.
Yeah,
And please state your name and title for the record.
Dave Rackler, Deputy Director of FEMA.
Thank you very much for attending.
Thank you so much for having me today.
If you wouldn't mind waiting till Counselor Sanchez joins us again, we'll just wait 1 minute for him, just so he doesn't miss any of your presentation.
No problem, we still have questions.
Then we don't have these options.
It is easily,
That was it.
it's,
Oh, yeah.
it's
we keep
20,
track,
it's
yeah.
24 to 27. I like it.
We're thorough.
Glad to see you save the best for last.
Yeah.
It's,
Oh, I
uh,
appreciate your patience, we had a full agenda this evening.
No problem.
Yeah, no, this is pretty sure.
We waited for you.
I always have questions, someone responsible,
Yeah.
public servant.
Yeah.
Okay, please proceed.
Good evening. So tonight, before you today with this proposal for a project at United Way. The great thing about this project is it costs the city of Providence $0 and 0 cents.
So we like to hear.
I'll make a motion.
Yes.
I need to go for it.
I live by a policy we give up and say I'm enough already. I want to get some back for us. So the great thing about this is an emergency situation that we're dealing with the United States Department of Agriculture, Emergency Watershed Protection Fund. We did coordinate with United Way of Rhode Island to ensure that they are the project manager handling the acquisition and the process. And they have agreed to pay any local match funds. All of the documentation has been submitted to them. It's been made very clear that the city holds no financial liability for this project. We are simply there to provide oversight and direction due to it being on the water and all the different, regulations that go into that with the state, as well as the fact that the USDA cannot directly give money to a non-NGO. They have to come to the municipality to do so, and that's what we come into. So this project is for 1.067 million. Again, that is all federal funds directly going to this project, and the city is liable for $0.
Can you tell us a little bit about the project, and it's located at 50 Valley?
Yes, ma'am. So it's located at 50 Valley Street. Unfortunately, in the December and January floods, there was significant damage done to the retaining wall along the property line. What makes this a concern for us, first off, there was an erosion issue on San Souci Drive, which is right on the corner there. And that dovetails into this issue, but this particular location is a brownfield site, has contaminated soils, underground storage tanks. And so the failure of this wall would create a flooding opportunity, but as well as an environmental impact. I will say the exigency of this, I visited the site a few weeks ago and I could stick my whole arm into the wall. The engineers on the site do not feel as though the wall would last another significant flood like we saw.
So with that in mind, what is the timing on this?
They're ready to start as soon as this is approved through the council. I told them not to proceed until I had their blessing, but they are already put out for bid. They have a couple contractors that they're looking at, looking to start as early as the next few weeks, getting things in place. Ideally, we want to be in the water before December, out of the water by January, of course contingent on the weather, and everything wrapped up by June, paperwork filed, sealed and delivered by the end of July. This is if the winter cooperates.
So if this project were approved, I'm just asking some questions, it wouldn't be before council until December 5th. So I'm just, is that soon enough?
I think as long as this group allows me to do so, and I can have them proceed, if we have to make any adjustments, that's written into the contract that they have to comply with any of our requests. And so if the council would request any adjustments to the process, they would be willing to comply with that. I'll see what I will do.
Okay, questions? Yes, Councilor Sanchez.
Thank you so much. My only question is, what's United Way's role in this?
United Way owns the property and they operate out of that building.
And they're gonna take the whole project management scope themselves. We've hired the engineers and all that. Cool.
Yes.
Super small question. Also, thank you for bringing this money into the city. That's awesome. Yeah, being a project. I know, like, it's no monetary complaints, but you guys still spend time and effort. It's not nothing, so thank you for doing that. Is there any cost overages? Is that United Way will cover those? Like, if this doesn't cover the whole project, United Way is.
Correct, so we have an agreement, so we meet weekly, United Way, USDA, myself, and the engineers. And if they do decide to go beyond the scope that's approved, it has to be approved to USDA first.
Okay.
Then we would send it to legal for approval at the city. So it would be a lot of moving pieces if they decided to do that. The reason that's good for us is it, you know, if they just run out of money, it's not like they're gonna be able to come to us and say, you didn't help us finish pay for this form. The other good thing is USDA is much different than FEMA in terms of much more local focused, and they, like I said, they're actually meetings every week, they're asking questions, they visited on sites with myself. So they're very involved, so they want to see it through the completion. So that's also good.
Would you like to
say something?
This guy gets no credit, but, city rivers are like one of those areas that are like nobody's problem, but cause big problems for us, and David Ratcliffe with like, out being asked, has done tremendous work to get entities to clean the rivers who are responsible for them, like Amtrak, Home Depot, and others, which is making a big impact on flood mitigation, and like the guy never, look at him right now, he's like,
so
never
happy.
even asks for a pat on the back, just does the work. So I figured I'd take a minute while I could to say thank you to David, but to let you all also know that that work has been ongoing and is having. Thank you.
See what happens when you go last, David?
Yeah.
You understand,
We
yeah.
appreciate it.
So now we can appreciate you also and pat you on the back.
Thank you, man. It's not necessary, but I do appreciate it.
Well, it's important,
And I'll
very important.
I will make a motion that we approve number 7, and we can save everything else for later.
Okay. Motion to approve made by Councilor Taylor, seconded by Councilor April, all in favor?
Aye.
All opposed? Thank you so much.
Thank you so much. Man. Appreciate it.
Thank you. With that, our business is concluded.
I will make a motion to adjourn. I'll second her motion.
Okay, 7 million.
Sure.
We're adjourned. He says we don't need a motion. Then as the chair, I should be able to adjourn. Is that
You
correct?
can adjourn.
Well, we already made the
You
motion.
made the
so-
motion.
The motion's made, I'll look that up,
All right, so the
I'm not
motion-
sure.
motion made by Councilor-
Don't take her only motion.
I know, this is my only motion.
By Councilor April, seconded by Councilor Taylor, all
I
in
get to
favor?
sneak it in.
Aye, all opposed?
Nay.